And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. I have a lovely guest joining me today, Dallas Lewis. Thanks for being here. You wrote this book, and the minute I saw the title, I'm like, get that girl on our show. Why Some Animals Eat Their Young. I knew what it meant right away. A survivor's guide to motherhood. And look at that cute cover and illustration with 3 kids. I've got 3 kids. I saw this. I'm like, who is this lady? We've got to get her on. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about this book and why did you write it? And then we'll go into a little bit of some of the chapters because they were charming. Go ahead.
Well, I figured that eventually my memory would fail me, and I wanted to have some concrete some concrete references for the kids, just basically ammo for when they have their own kids, and I can say, now listen, you did this, you did this, you did this, so just take it in stride. Really for my own mental health, just so that I wouldn't forget anything, the big stuff.
Well, you seem so charming because I've also spoken to you on the phone. You're charming, you're delightful. And when I found out a little about you and what you always aspired to be, I thought, boy, she is really something. Tell us growing up what you always aspired to be.
A princess. I was waiting for Disney to come and grab me and make me a princess, but no, I wanted to be I wanted to be a 1950s housewife. I grew up on reruns of Leave It to Beaver and the Donna Reed show and the Patty Duke show. And that's what I wanted. I thought that was, that was normal. That was what you did. You got married, you took care of your husband, you had babies, you took care of those babies. And that's what I wanted to do. And I found a man that would let me do that.
That's pretty impressive because I grew up and I wanted to be like Bewitched and just switch my nose and send my husband somewhere else. So it just goes to show, the differences between us. But that's pretty impressive. You wanted to be like those ladies on TV. That's pretty amazing. And that's what you've done. So you got married, you got 3 kids, and you wrote this book again so that all of us moms would say, no, we're not crazy. She went through it too, right?
Yeah, that was it. Because when you're in the thick of it and you've got little ones at the house, you really kind of feel like you're all by yourself. And I just was hoping that if a handful of people would read it and know that the chaos is perfectly normal, that that they weren't by themselves. And because we kind of operate as islands, as moms, especially stay home moms, because the only walls that we really see on a real regular basis are our own. And it gets kind of lonely. And I wanted other moms to read it, parents, grandparents, whoever, and realize that some of the struggles that you go through, we're all doing that. We're all going through that.
Yeah, and it's especially difficult because I also, like you, had 3 kids, 5 and under at the same time. And that's really can make you go a little crazy, right? Or you think you're going crazy. Yeah. And then maybe you go to the park with your kids and you're hoping, gosh, I hope somebody's going through this. And you show up and they're all looking perfect. And they seem to have it all together. And I'm thinking, well, is it me? So you've had those moments, right? Where you go, is it me?
Oh, absolutely. And when is it me? I thought for a long time that it's got to be, am I the drama? It's got to be me. And I went through years where I was, living out of yoga pants and t-shirts. And if you had seen me 2 hours ago, that's what I was in this morning. So I just, nobody has it all together. Nobody does.
Talk to me about
it. Doesn't matter what they look like at the park. It doesn't matter what they look like. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I interrupted you. I have a little bit of a delay. So I think you're talking. Well, yeah, go ahead.
It is a delay.
That's okay.
Nobody has it all together. Nobody, everybody's kid loses it at the grocery store, and everybody's kid loses it at Walmart when they see the candy at the checkout. I don't know why retailers do that. And so it's perfectly normal to not be able to make it past 8:30 on Monday morning before you completely lose your mind. So it's normal. You're good.
Why did they do that at checkout? So you give in and buy the kid the candy. That's exactly why, probably, right? I didn't. I would just pay and run out of there, and then they'd still be screaming in the car, and I'd think, what am I doing? So let's talk
No,
about
girl,
some. Go ahead.
listen, I lied to my kids about the candy. I lied to them. I was like, oh, baby, it's not for sale on Mondays. It's not for sale on Tuesdays. And by the next time we went to the grocery store, they forgot what day it was. They didn't know their days of the week. And that's how I got out of buying candy.
Oh, that's pretty good. See, I would be truthful with them and I'd say, well, and then they really had no interest in hearing about the truth about their teeth or anything else. Like, I needed to know you then. I was a little too much of a realist and it just didn't
Right.
work. Sometimes those stories really, really do work. Let's talk a little bit about you and your husband, because was it
Okay.
trying for you, or did you guys keep it together while you were raising three little kids? Because it's trying for all of us, because you have to be on the same page, right? Like, I'll just speak for myself. I'm a little
Yeah.
more the disciplinarian. He is not. So then they liked him better. And it's like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? And it came in between us a little bit. How about you two?
We decided, I vividly remember having a conversation with my then boyfriend about what he thought kids looked like and what, how he was raised, what his background was, what my background was. And we just decided, we only dated. Now, granted, we only dated about 6 months before we got married and had only been married 6 months before we had a baby. So we were still getting to know each other. And I really was going to take his lead. But we decided very early on that we needed to present a unified front. And we've been married 22 years, have 3 kids, and we have only really honestly disagreed a handful of times about what discipline or what consequence or punishment for the kids, but we never did it in front of them. And that was something that we decided from day one, is that when we disagree, and we're going to, because everybody does, that we would not do that in front of the kids. And it didn't matter what it was. If it was, I didn't really want this for dinner, or I think he needs to be grounded. No, I think he needs a couple of swats. It just, we always had that discussion away from the kids, so that we presented this unified front.
Tell me one of the toughest times when you had your kids that really bogged you down. It's in the book, and you've got a couple of them if you want to sort of sift through it. I know one was Disney World, because I've been to Disney World with my kids when they were little. It's super stimulating for them, right? And
it's terrible. It's awful.
What happened when you went there? Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
It's making me sweat thinking about it. It's making me sweat.
I know. What happened at Disney World with you and your kids? Tell us.
Which time? I mean, we didn't learn the first time that it was going to be
I'll
a
remind
dumpster
you.
fire. The first time.
Elliot and Cinderella. Tell us about Cinderella.
That one. Yeah. Elliot is my youngest, and he was 2 at the time, and just infatuated with the princesses. He loved the princesses. All of my kids did. Like I said, I thought I was a princess. And we went and waited in line to see 3 princesses, didn't know which 3. And the final princess was Cinderella. And that, to this day, he's almost 20 years old, that is still his favorite princess. And we saw her, they opened the curtain and she was there, and he lost his mind, just went to run to her to give her a hug, and she squatted down thinking it was going to be harmless because he's just 2 and he was little, and he dropped that shoulder like a linebacker, and they both went over backwards. And it was horrifying. It was horrifying. Princess Secret Service is screaming into their mics, "We've got a princess down, princess down." And then my other 2 kids started screaming. Emma thought that, he had killed Cinderella, and Jeff and I just stood there just going, we've never been thrown out of an amusement park before for assaulting a princess. I'm sweating telling you about this. The memories of it is just, I'm just like, oh my goodness, will they ever let us back in?
Oh my gosh. And then you're concerned about the other 2, right? Like, what are they going to do at this time? And you're trying to hold it together. And how did you hold it together without losing it? Because I probably would have lost it. So how do you do that?
I was in shock. I was just I couldn't believe I couldn't believe that he had that much power, because, my kids were peanuts. They were little bitty. And I couldn't believe that for a little pint-sized peanut like that he had that much oomph, and they went over. I mean, just over. Her hoop skirts lifted him up, and she was, he had her in this big bear hug headlock, and
Wow.
And I just stood there. I mean, honestly, I just stood there taking a breath, and then they escorted us out. Our time was over. They were like, you're done. Too much.
Oh my gosh. I know what you mean. Then you're embarrassed. You feel like a complete loser of a mom. And you just feel like, is this what I signed up for when I really just wanted to be that 1950s housewife?
No, I didn't sign up for that. No.
Yeah, because that was not happening on the Donna Reed show. Let's face it, those kids were in step, well-dressed, down for dinner on time. And I'm guessing that just wasn't that moment, right?
No, that wasn't that moment. And, I stepped into the 1950s housewife role fairly well. It was, I was playing house for the first couple of years that we were married. The children, they had other ideas. They were very rarely dressed, forget well dressed. I mean, my kids ran around in diapers. I live in Texas, and it's hot 9 months of the year. So they were in diapers. That's about it for a long time. And so, yeah, if you took a snapshot of the early years, you would either be horrified or feel very sorry for me.
Girl, I get it, because I have 3 sons, and when they were little, and they were all under 5, so they were young, they would actually, I'll tell this story. They would take their underwear off and put it on their heads and run around the house. My mother, who was very proper, was horrified. She's like, how could you let them do that? I'm like, how could I not? I've lost control completely. Like, these are the kind of things, but it is the way we handle it, right? Like, for those of us like me who would like everything sort of in place, it could make us upset. But for those of us who look at this situation, these are children, this will happen. It could also put us at ease. It's all how we handle it, which is why this book is great, because it's to tell us we're not alone. We all have a little Elliot who knocks down Cinderella. Clearly he has a type. And, we do. We all have kids. But also I want to talk about if one feels like they need to medicate themselves. You're saying, hey, you got to do what you got to do, right? Could you tell us about that too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I had 3 kids in 26 months, and no multiple births. They were all single. So my oldest turned 2, and 2 months later I delivered my 3rd, and when my daughter was in the middle. So I mean, that was that's a lot on a body, and it's a lot on the hormones that we have when we're pregnant, and then the hormones right after we're pregnant. And I just was bombarded with that, and I realized when you've got a crying kiddo and you've got a screaming newborn, that you have the propensity is there to go a little nuts, and to not want to bathe, and not want to cook, and not want to pick up, and I mean, you're in survival mode because nobody's sleeping and everybody's crying, it's just everybody's sticky, everybody is just everything. And after I had Elliot, I told my husband, I was like, something's got to give, because when I'm trying to sleep, I think I hear babies crying. When I do hear babies crying, I'm so sleepy that it feels like I've got sandpaper on the back of my eyes. And I called my doctor. I was like, you got to do something, dude, because this is too much. I got too many kids. I've got too much going through my mind. You've got to at least give me a little encouragement or a little help so that I can catch my breath, and I can take a deep breath before I react to something. And then that lets me respond to something, because there's a difference between reacting and responding.
So what did you do?
He put me on Zoloft. I mean, they put me on an antidepressant, and I stayed on that for probably a year. And it was something very subtle. It was something that was safe for me. It was safe. I was breastfeeding, so I needed something that would be safe for the baby. And I'm telling you, it allowed me to catch my breath. And I had to get over the stigma, because here I am, this 1950s wannabe housewife, of not being able to be perfect on my own. That one, I needed to ask for help. I needed to let other people know that I was struggling. And then I needed to accept the help that was offered to me, whether that was in the form of a pharmaceutical intervention, or my girlfriends that came over to watch the kids and let me take, an hour power nap, and the people that brought dinner to my house. I mean, I just needed to accept the help that was offered to me. And if people don't get anything else out of my book, I want them to get that it's okay to not do everything, and it's okay to ask for help. And once you do ask for help, you need to accept the help that's going to be offered to you.
Were you near family? Because you said you had people bring over food. Your girlfriends came over. Did you have your family? Because I was not near my family, and that was hard for me. I could hire somebody to help me, but it's never quite the same, because at 5 or 6 o'clock they do go home. They're off the clock, and even if they love your kids, they're not there. Whereas your mom will be there all day and night. So I would, have my parents come stay for such extended periods of time. They were happy to do it. But I felt like if I didn't have that village, I don't know what would have happened. I would have been a little more batty than I was, right?
Right. Well, Jeff and I, we live in Houston. We live in the city of Houston, and I came from Austin, which is about 2.5 hours away. And when we started having our kiddos, my siblings, I've got 3 younger sisters, they were still in middle school and high school, and my parents had 2 restaurants in Austin. So it was a challenge for my mom to be able to come in. Jeff's mom lived outside of Chicago, and so she would fly in every 4 to 6 weeks, and then she'd stay for a couple of weeks, and that was most beneficial. But my biggest circle of help came from our church and the moms group that I was a part of.
Find your mom's group, people. I also had a mom's group at the church, and they were really very kind. I hardly knew these people, but I guess they had been through it too. And if that one doesn't work, go find another mom's group. Like, they're out there. They're at the playground, maybe at the grocery store. Look for Facebook groups, right? I mean, you can get your help, so you can get that shower and get your hair done. One of the worst is that shower thing, because you don't take the time for the shower. Your body doesn't quite feel the same, and you're just sitting there in this stuff. You're not alone. And that's why I just thought this was such a wonderful book to have you on to talk about. You talked to me also about MOPS, MOPS International. What is MOPS International?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It's a lifesaver, 100%. It's a lifeline. MOPS International is a moms group that is based out of around the Denver, Colorado area. They've been around for 40-something years, and it was a group of 6 or 8 moms that just got together because mothering is hard. It's very, very hard. And they wanted to give support to each other, and it just catapulted from there. And we've got MOPS groups all across the world, and they typically meet in churches, but you don't have to be affiliated with a particular denomination or religion. It's mainly at her mom, how to love your kids to the best of your abilities, and find that village, because the ladies that are in that group, they understand what it's like to get into a shower, not shave both legs, and can't remember if you shampooed your hair. So you just end up putting conditioner in it, and you look worse when you came out, than you did when you went in. They understand that, and they'll be there for you to help with a load of laundry, to bring a casserole, to, take your kids on a play date. And I highly, highly encourage your viewers to find, if they don't have a mom's group or a family, that they look at mops.org, MOPS.org, and find a group near them, because it was life-saving for me.
You also talk about getting a puppy if you're thinking about having kids, and you and I disagree on this one, and I'll tell my viewers and listeners why, but you're going to go first. Why a puppy?
Because you got to keep them alive. You have to keep them alive, and they don't talk to you. So you've got to decipher what they want by the grunts that they make, the noises they make, what bark is when I want to play, what bark is when I'm scared, or, just whatever, when I'm threatened. And you've got to figure it out. And my oldest son wanted a puppy. He's in college. He's actually engaged. And my husband and I said, no, son, this is not the time for that. This is not the time for that, because you've got to figure out who's going to care for this puppy while you're on campus for 10 hours a day. What's going to happen when you want to go out of town? Well, when he goes out of town, we get the puppy. And he went ahead and got her anyway. And he's figuring out that, they're expensive. They need to eat. They need to go to the vet. They need shots. They need toys. They, all of these things. And my advice is just, if you think you are ready for kiddos, try a puppy first, and make sure that you can handle a four-legged fur baby before you try and get the two-legged version, because those are a little bit more unforgiving, and they're with you forever.
Hats off to your son. That's pretty impressive. He's in school, getting married, got a puppy. Wow, he's a very mature young man. That's incredible. Now, my story on the puppy, this is not necessarily traditional thinking. I found puppies to be harder than kids. Now, maybe it says a lot about my parenting style. I'm really not sure. But for me, right, I could put the kid in the little baby carrier, put him in the car, or put the kid in the baby carrier and fly to go see my parents, or do anything with them. But the puppy, I've got to go to the kennel, get a puppy sitter or whatever. They're pooping all over the place without a diaper. So most people say, get a puppy. Me, I actually find a puppy harder. Now, of course, we have a puppy, but I usually your advice is what's more sound. If you can handle the puppy, you can handle the kid. Me, I can handle the kid, and the puppy was a little tougher. So I love that one. Any parting words you'd like to say to our audience from your book? Is there anything you want to read from your book? There's a lot in here, people. I want you to know. Anger management. You talk about keeping it together, because I wasn't necessarily angry. For me, I was almost getting depressed, and I didn't know what to do. You talk about anger management. You talk about how you just don't feel right because you've got a lot of weight on there that's not coming off. That's the big shocker. Any advice that you would give that was in your book, so we can say to our audience, pick this up, because she's got some great stuff in there.
My favorite chapter is probably the wrestling match. Is the wrestling match, because it is so important to keep that connection with your spouse after the kids get here. It's so easy to be all consumed with this brand new baby, because human babies are the most helpless babies on the planet. I mean, horses get up and walk 30 seconds after they're born, and a giraffe kicks her baby till he stands up. We can't do that. And so they're all consuming, and it's so important to maintain that relationship with your spouse, because eventually your kids are going to grow up, they're going to move out, they're going to be their own members of society. And I never wanted to be sitting across the breakfast table from a stranger, because we poured 18 years into the kids and neglected our marriage. And so we've always done little getaways. I mean, Ethan, our oldest, was 6 weeks old, and we left him with a friend from church, and we spent the night in a hotel downtown, just so that we could remember, that we went to dinner. We didn't have to be mommy and daddy. We were husband and wife. And so, I mean, I would say that my most important and my favorite chapter is probably the wrestling match, just so you don't neglect each other. And remember that you have an identity outside of mommy. You have an identity outside of mommy. You have an identity outside of wife. And I love being a wife. I love it. My favorite thing that Jeff has ever given me, aside from our children, is his name. And I love being a wife, but we've got to remember to keep our own identity.
So you also have a blog, and that's something that you do, which is wonderful. Can you share with our audience about your blog so we could make sure that they go and take a look?
Well, you can contact me through my blog, and I would love to come and speak to your women's group or your mom's group, wherever you are. So my contact information is on there. You can buy my book through the website, which is dallaslewis.com, LOUIS.com. And I post, much to my editor's chagrin, I don't get posts up as often as she would like, but at least once a week, and just what's going on in my crazy world. I thought things would slow down when the kids moved out. They don't. They don't.
Nope.
It's just different.
No.
It's not, it's just a different phase. So I post about that.
Yeah, it is a different phase. And while you're not concerned that they're going to go rolling down the stairs, it is a different type of concern. I don't really think the job is ever done. Even if they're off and married and doing their thing, I think once a mom, you really are always a mom. I tend to have a worry gene, worry and concerned too often. And that's something that my kids are like, you got to stop. It's like we all have something we need to sort of work on, because as my mom would say, worry gets you nowhere. And she's right. And now that they're older, I find that I'm worrying more, and I have to have her voice in my head. It says, no, that's not gonna get them or me anywhere. I just have to have faith that things will work out. So you're right about that. It just changes. It changes. So I'm glad that you write about that too.
Change.
So we could follow along in your blog. Any other parting words you want to tell our audience before I let you go?
No, thank you for having me. This has been great. It gave me, I've got my face on, I've got my hair done. I'm going to make Jeff take me out for dinner tonight. And so I won't cook tonight.
Good for you.
But I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
I did too. And I really enjoyed you. I really think you're authentic. You're lovely, a wonderful wife and mom, but super real. And that's what we need. We need real people out there who are saying, I might look okay right now talking to me, but an hour ago I did not. And if I had a baby on my breast, I wouldn't look so great then either. So everybody, we're in this thing together. So
absolutely.
That's what I got from this. I love your book, and everybody please look up her blog, Dallas Lewis, Why Some Animals Eat Their Young. And if that's not the best title, I don't know what is. A Survivor's Guide to Motherhood. Great book, fun read. Thank you so much for joining us, Dallas. And everybody, you could find our show and our interview with Dallas.
Thanks,
on
Deborah.
YouTube.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're on YouTube, we are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and then in the audio version, we're on iHeart Radio app, we are on Apple Podcasts, and just about anywhere you get an audio podcast, you will find our interview. So thanks everybody for joining us.